Ready when you are.
No Paul today.
No Paul today. Hey, what's up, everybody? No Paul again this week. He's actually traveling. Don't know where he's traveling to this time, but he's busy.
Probably somewhere cool.
Somewhere cooler than the office.
That's right.
So this week we're going to be talking a little bit about moving from residential to commercial and kind of how you go about that. And me personally, I don't really know because I've been commercial my entire career, but this guy right here has actually made the switch early on, so he'll do most of the talking, and
Great.
we'll see what he's got to say.
So today, if there's anybody out there who wants to be included in the conversation, please speak up and feel free to reach out and join the conversation. Like Daniel said, the starting. Sorry, my voice is horrible.
Go ahead, keep on talking.
Okay, starting out in flooring, we were a combination of, or I was, and the gentleman I worked with was a combination of residential and commercial. Never really chose a side until him and his partner split up, and then we veered over to commercial. But for me, the experience was, I'm gonna be honest, residential is not for everyone. It wasn't for me. I don't feel like the setting was my strength to begin with, only because I know what it's like to have someone in your home, and I felt like I was always invading on someone else's privacy. They allowed you in their home, and your home is supposed to be your sanctuary. It's your kingdom, and it's yours alone, and I always felt a little odd being in there, to be honest. And maybe that's just my upbringing, right? You want to be respectful of other people's property, their belongings, their area. So when we did transition more towards the commercial side, I was extremely happy about that. The commercial side is there's just a lot more, I want to say freedom, but that's definitely changed over the past 10 years or so. But the freedom on the commercial side was
Not having to deal with the homeowners
yeah.
being like, we were just talking about this a little bit ago about how you see some of the pictures on Facebook, and it's these guys working over here, and then the homeowner in a chair like 5-6 feet away from them, just watching them all day long. And a lot of sorry, our mother is over here coughing.
Yeah, that's just her saying hi in her own special way.
But it's like we call them helicopters. We used to call them helicopters, right? And they used to bother me too, up until there's a point in your career where you don't really care who's watching you anymore, because you're not doing anything wrong, and even if you do mess up, you know how to fix it. It's not like it's you need to try and hide anything. It's like, oops, my bad, let me go grab this over here and fix this real quick.
Usually my oops was cutting myself though. Like, yeah, I'll be right back. It's just a different setting. Understanding the difference as far as communication with the homeowner versus a commercial site where you're dealing with other trades or a general, the communication aspect is a lot different. I feel there's more etiquette involved in residential, and that's probably why in my younger years I didn't really like it, right? Because there was too much structure that needed to be in place for me, and I was a little rough around the edges when I was younger. I was not the easiest person to talk around. I struggle with this to this day. Is I have a very, very thin filter, and back then I had no filter. I didn't understand the concept of utilizing a filter. Like, there was a time and a place.
Being able to turn it on and shut it off at will.
Yeah, that was more difficult when I was younger. because I had a different mindset. If you didn't like me, then oh well. Chances are I don't like you either. That was my mindset when I 18, 19, 20, probably 21 too. But when you go from the household and the residential setting, whether it's like HUD homes or any of that type of work to the high end portion, there's a very broad spectrum there, right? Like there's a lot you can get away with in certain scenarios, but I'll be honest, I was never in those $500,000 homes or $1 million homes. I don't think that our skill set when I was that young and the gentlemen that I worked with or for, that wasn't something they went after either. And thank you. I wasn't ready for that. That could have put me in a different position, for sure.
Could have messed up a lot more stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It could have. And it's all mindset. Some guys are just like built for that. Like my buddy John Steyer Flooring out of Iowa. That guy's built for the residential aspect. He understands people, right? And that's been his line of work. And it takes a certain person to thrive in that atmosphere, that environment. Could I do it now? Yeah, 100%. I'm fine now. Like I understand now. It's a little bit different. I'm a little bit different, a lot different. And everyone is a little more understanding. But the commercial industry is where I find my comfort. I will always remain comfortable in any commercial setting. And that kind of falls under the, what's it called? Like the apartment units? Multifamily, yeah, that falls under there too. Like assisted living, I know that's where they live and is their residence, but to me, I still consider that commercial projects. And then transitioning over was super easy, super helpful. It was more our strength anyway. Give me 50,000 square feet, we're going to perform, rather than a 5,000 square foot home where I just felt like you were in a kid.
Even 5,000 square foot home, still a big home.
Yeah,
and I think that's
huge.
one of the things that Paul probably wanted to talk about too, was because you get these guys that are strictly residential and they're 1-2 man operations, and then once you get into a commercial setting, I mean, there's some times where we have 5, 6, 7 people on one project for months straight, and just having the manpower to be able to do something like that and not kill yourself, work yourself to the ground. But also, you're looking at the cost of the product. If you're selling the product, you're going from having a house that's a couple thousand square feet where you're coming out of pocket essentially a few grand to, I mean, some of these commercial projects are,
millions of dollars.
Yeah.
That's above what we're trying to do right now, you guys. So don't get that wrong. There are companies
still,
out there that can facilitate that.
When you look at some of these groups, it's even if you look at Home Depot and the box stores and stuff like that, they want their money before they even start any work, right? And a lot of the flooring stores are like that as well, and probably the guys that are doing residential, it's like, you're gonna give me at least half of my money up front, and then we're going to get payment incrementally or right after the work starts. When you're working with commercial, trying to do everything by yourself, full service, you're looking at, waiting months before you get any payment. It's like there's so much more paperwork and stuff on the office end that you don't have to deal with when you're residential. You don't have to deal with, AIA billing and, putting stuff on certain documents in order and having to get it notarized even before you get paid. That's something that we had to learn as we went too.
Yeah. And it's crazy too, thinking that you're more, or our comfort, or my comfort, your comfort, whatever, our comfort is in the commercial industry, knowing that there's more rules to follow, when the part that I didn't like about the residential
was the rules you had to follow.
Following the rules. And it's just weird to think about it like that. But I came into this on the installation side. So it was open space, right? Like freedom to run, so to speak, in the commercial than it was in the residential. And I guess that does come with its headache, and we're learning as we go. We're still learning, and we're evolving. But you did say, I want to touch on what you said too, like the residential part, like he's right. Like if you're a 1, 2, 3 man operation and you can find enough work for you guys to partner up or work together on stuff.
Actually on this camera today.
Oh, is it? Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Then the residential is kind of right up your alley, right? So if you're one of those individuals that likes working alone, works by yourself, or you want help every now and then residential is a lot easier to maintain or be successful at than commercial. It all has its challenges. It's its niche. But if you have ADHD and you just need 1,000 things to do on one project, then commercial is where it's at. I don't know how else to explain it, but some people just love the wide openness of the commercial. Some people love the residential, but I think it might be, would it be transition-wise? You think it's easier for a residential guy to transition to commercial or the other way around?
I think it's easier for a commercial guy to transition into residential because we've seen that more often than we've seen residential guys going to commercial mm-hmm. because you have to be willing to create a team if you're going to do commercial, right? Yes. Because if you just want to work by yourself, then residential is the way to go because you're working in a smaller space on projects that you can handle yourself with just you and a guy. But if you're looking at, some of these bigger commercial projects, that's when it takes more people. So a lot of the guys that we've seen transition into the residential from the commercial have not had a hard time really, and they enjoy what they do still. And I mean, you think about a couple years ago when we seen the residential market shooting off, right? And the commercial was not really, tanking or anything, but it was just steady. So what did they do? They were like, man, all these houses are being built, and I know some builders. I'm just going to switch over. And now, we're getting calls from some of these guys, and it's like, hey, what do you got going on? Because, I mean, even through the chamber, you go to the meetings, and that's what they'll say. They see everything in the residential side kind of slowing down a little bit, and the commercial side is actually taking off a little bit more than it has been, I think.
Especially the multifamily. So, and that's one thing too, is multifamily is going to be able to feed both monsters, right? Commercial and residential, because essentially that's what it is. This is a residential project on a commercial scale. I think that's a good way to.
And you get a mixture, right? Because a lot of the multifamilies that I've been seeing come across the desk are like they'll still have the stretch carpet in the units mm-hmm. in the bedrooms, but then in the kitchens and stuff it'd be glue down LVP
or sheet
vinyl instead of the click stuff.
Yep. And then the common areas will have commercial glue down carpet or resilient as well.
But I think if you are looking to make a switch and you are doing residential, even full service, selling the materials and everything. I don't, a lot of these guys go through Floor Source or something, or they have partnerships with the stores. But if you're looking to get into commercial, I'd 100% see it being beneficial for you to, get with a store that's doing most of the legwork and then just providing the labor, because, I mean, that's how we did it for years, and it worked, right? You don't have that headache of chasing down the payments, having to come up with all the money up front. I mean, some of the jet projects that we've done lately, they're not even big, but it's still, $60,000, $70,000 worth of material that you're pretty much saying, here, and I'll see you in a few months.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking, but, it's part of the process, part of the learning.
Right, because I'm even the other day, I think it was yesterday, the day before yesterday, had someone message me on Facebook, and he's like, hey, I'm thinking about getting into this multifamily type deal. It has 256 units. And I was just wondering, he was asking me about measurements, about, how do I do pricing? I'm usually not doing stuff. And it's like, man, at 256 units plus the hallways plus the stairwells, I said, you're probably looking at, $250,000 easy just of material that you're going to have to float. It's like, not only that, he's working with someone that they want him to supply the material and everything. And it's like, man, do you even have the accounts to be able to order this stuff?
How are you going to leverage that is the question. And two is when they're at the starting line and they fire the pistol, what are you going to do for labor? Do you have all that in place? Can you have all that in place? I mean, there's a lot of variables to think about it, and I go out like this and I tell people like this, because we have a sized project that we know is outside of what we can handle, right? Like we understand everybody has limitations. Even if we do reach out to our network and try to use some of the guys and the installers that we know for help, there is no project too small, but there is definitely a project that is too big. And knowing your limitations on that right away will help you a lot. Like I think that at some point we may have taken on more than we could chew, and it didn't always start like that because scheduling is all over the place in commercial. Residential is actually fairly easy to schedule as long as you have the material, but commercial there's a lot of variables that push you back or want you to get pushed up, and I think we've been to the point where we were working way too much to accommodate everybody else's schedule changes. Thinking that we were going to lose work if we said we can't accommodate. In some cases we might have, and in some cases we probably do right now. But it's okay to say no, or I'm sorry, I cannot accommodate that schedule change.
Right, and if you're thinking about, I definitely feel free to reach out to us. And like I said, someone on Facebook reached out to me with questions, and man, all we want to do is give you the information to make you make the right decision, but we can't make it for you, right? You're going to do whatever you want to do. So just be informed, right? And that's what we're here for, to inform everyone and just kind of let you know what we've been through. And I think if you are making the switch, looking back, that's the best bet is to get with another a contractor, a flooring contractor in your area, and start on the labor aspect only, and see how far that can take you before you even think about doing at least any big projects. I mean, we've done projects where it's just even at schools when we were first starting to sell, it's like a few rooms here and a few rooms there, and it's like when you're self-funding, it's hard to watch that money go out and not knowing when it's gonna return.
It's easy to overextend your finances because, I mean, you can look at it like you're going to get it back, but timing is very important, extremely important. Timing can make or break you for sure.
Right. So, just going back to those when they pay, when residential, you're essentially asking for money up front, you're getting it, and then you're getting your money pretty much as soon as you're done. We have commercial projects that I've been waiting for payment for probably 2 months now. Mm-hmm. And we have some contracts or some bids proposals that go out and they come back and it's like, hey, you're asking for a net 15 or a net 30, and we pay net 45 or a net 60. Is that okay? And I mean, that's a matter of absolutely, we will work with you because we want the work. If we say no, they probably are not going to change their pay schedule to accommodate you.
And on the other hand, you may already have some relationships with contractors, and they understand. All these small these large contractors started out in a position where they couldn't afford to do what they're doing now. They weren't at that size, and some of them understand that like if they see value in you, then they will they may, not they will, they may bend the rules a little bit, but I would not make it a habit on asking. But just be transparent. Like 100% be transparent. If you can, you can. If you can't, you can't. But don't lead them to believe you can when you can't. That's just, nobody likes to have egg on their face. On another note, you salesmen, you flooring stores out there, chances are one of your guys' installers or one of the crews has someone out there who gets a lot of phone calls about work and selling product. They don't want to deal with it. They defer that. But if you guys have meetings with them and say, hey, if you guys ever get these phone calls or get clients asking you this or that about product, if you supply it or if you can or if you want to, and obviously it's not stepping on your toes, right? Like you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you. It could generate more revenue for you guys too, but man, be honest, give them a piece of the pie. You know what I mean?
That's where we say partnerships, right? That's what you're doing. You're being transparent and creating partnerships rather than creating someone that's trying to go behind your back, and they're going to end up doing it anyways. You might as well take your piece while you can.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time I was in the field and doing doing a lot of office work as well, right? And I think at one point it got so busy, me taking care of phone calls and estimates and labor quotes and all that I was having, I was spending less and less time on the floor on projects when I needed to be spending more, and I was putting my guys from 8 to 10 hour day to a 12-hour day. But also when I was on the floor doing the installs, I was go, 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 no lunch, no break, because I know I'm going to get a phone call. I know I have a meeting. I know I got to leave for an hour, and I have a half-hour drive, and I'm going to lose 3 hours. Or I would send the guys home, and I would stay and make up for that time. So I was really not doing myself any favors. But my mom's trying to technology over there with a very easy printer.
Is it out of paper?
It's on the wrong thing.
You gotta fix that in the computer. Anyway, guys, sorry. You want to help her real quick? Or you want me
No,
to?
just leave it alone, Mom. We'll do it when we're done.
Where was I at? I lost. Sorry.
Spending too much time on the phone and not enough time on the floor.
So, and then the transition to the office part was, in order for me to justify being more available for our clients or partners, I had to start making additional funds on the sales portion. And that's where the partnerships come into play. Like, hey, I have a client looking for this. Can I purchase material through you, but leave me a little bit of room for the margin? And that's how it really started. Once again, I wasn't responsible for the finances out of pocket, but I did owe them the dollars and cents once everything was said and done. So that did help with a little bit of the transition from labor to sales. But the only thing that would help transitioning anyone from residential to commercial would be know what you're getting into. Call somebody, ask questions. Do not
partner up with another installation company and get your feet wet on a few jobs, because the market from residential to commercial is totally different, and that's why we love commercial, and that's why residential guys love residential.
Yeah, and just for the residential guys who are making the transition, hey, just understand that there's a lot more science involved in commercial. There's a lot more for you to understand and to know in the commercial world. And I'm not taking a shot at any residential guy because, or outfits. It's just, there is way more that could go wrong in a commercial setting than there is in a residential setting, depending on what type of residential.
Right, because if you're just doing carpet day in and day out and you're stretching, you're not really worried about moisture readings or anything. But if you do wood, you're constantly having to check the moisture of the wood to make sure that it's within tolerance of the product you're installing anyway. So like you said, it depends on what you're dealing with. But in commercial, I mean, you're dealing with concrete a large majority of the time, and if you don't keep everything set, make sure that you have your readings and everything, and something just pops up and it's like, ooh, what's the moisture content? And it's like, I don't know. Well,
Or if you go, what's moisture content?
right. Sounds like it's your fault right away.
Ooh. And no, we didn't start out like that. It didn't always. We didn't start out knowing everything. We just ended up learning as we went.
We've been on that when someone is like, well, what's the moisture content? And you're like, don't know. Like, didn't know that was my deal. And then once you start reading all the specs, it's like, yeah, the installer needs to know. Like, you don't have to do the testing, but you need to know what those moisture results are before you proceed, because as soon as you start spreading that adhesive, you're owning that project.
Yep, and you know, he makes a good point too. So if you are transitioning from residential to commercial, in the residential world, a lot of the stores rely on the installer to give them information, and they use that information for their terms with their client, right? And that's what pretty much writes up the contract. It's just an understanding. It's limited. But when you move over to the commercial side and say you're doing labor only, if you don't really know what is entailed or what's included in the contract between the flooring store or the flooring contractor or trade partner that you are working through to do the install, you could be putting yourself in a very, very bad position. Because they may miss something, and you need to be able to catch up to that. You need to be able to understand what the terms are, so you understand what's in your scope. Because if you're not working with someone you trust or who's reputable, they may defer the failure or anything that goes wrong right back onto you, and that's not what you want.
Well, you're talking about, stuff like that, and change orders with homeowners are pretty much on the fly. You're dealing with the homeowner already anyways. And in the commercial world, some of the documents I've seen, they state right in there, any additional work, even if you get something signed, is not going to be paid to you unless a change order is issued. So you have to, go through more hoops, and it really does suck sometimes, because sometimes it just puts you in a spot if you're like, if I don't do this, I can't continue. So do I just continue and then worry about it later? Or, I mean, they probably run into that on residential too, but it's easier to get into contact with a homeowner than it is to go through the chain of command on a commercial project.
Yeah, I mean, the person, essentially, you are bumping elbows with the person who is paying the final bill in residential, unless it's an investor who's never there, right? And you can get a verbal, you can talk face to face, say, hey, we ran into this situation, or hey, look what we found. Commercial, it's, I wish it was that easy. I do remember when it used to be a handshake in an agreement, and then you're good, right? But times have definitely changed. There's no more, I mean, there's handshakes, and there are people that you can still trust that will follow through on what they say they will do. However, there are still documents in place and systems in place to make sure of that. It's just, you can trust someone and give them a handshake and understand that they are going to come through without the documentation right then and right there, then you can go ahead and continue on and with forward progress on the project itself.
But I think this one's going to be a quick one today. You've got to get your son over to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Paul's traveling, and we don't really have any. Jose was on here for a little bit. He said that he's making the transition right now, and it's a different world, but I mean, it's definitely a really good world to be in. So if you do want to get into commercial, like I said, my advice is to get with a flooring contractor in your area and start out with labor only, so you're not eating the cost of all that material right away. Plus, will these manufacturers or distributors even open you up an account? When we made the switch from labor only to full service, there was some distributors and manufacturers that told us straight up, no, we're not gonna even open you an account because of the other people around you. And it wasn't until they start seeing you constantly, like, hey, this is legit, we're actually doing this, then they're like, all right, we'll work with you.
Yeah. We it's like, hey, I really need this. If you don't sell it to me, I'm going to go over here. Like, I need to figure this out. And just have a conversation with them, because I understand their aspect, right? Nobody wants to saturate the market with a sales team, right? They don't want, in an area that's got 20 stores, they don't want their product at 20 stores and have everyone bumping heads against one another. I get it. I understand. However, hey, let their margins separate them.
Right.
Let their skills separate them.
That's one of the things too, is working with your margins, because when you do get into commercial, a lot of it is low bid rules all until you have a strong hold on what your niche is, right? And there was a project that we lost. When was that, last week or the week before, when it's like it was like just over $100,000, and we were within $4,000 of the low bid, and it was like, sorry. Like, that's all it takes is, less than 4%.
You put all that work into getting these proposals together. They look through all of your details. They bypass all that. They look at the numbers, say, oh, yep, this is the lowest one. We're going to go there. Not always, but that does happen more often than not.
You'll get the clients that love you enough to where, you're the only person that they're going to call, and we love those clients.
So I guess I'm gonna have to close this out on my end pretty soon, pretty quick. But in closing for me is, here are my thoughts, my opinions. If you are in the residential market as an installer or even sales, the margins there could potentially be a lot greater than the margins in the commercial. And I'm just saying, like, you have a sale on a house, and say the average house for flooring on a 2,000 square foot house up and down is anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000, depending on what you're selling. You're going to have an opportunity to make a better margin on that project. But if you go to a 2,000 square foot commercial project, the margins on that are hard no in comparison. Like, they're just substantially lower because the market is a little more cutthroat, I would say.
Yeah, but I think, depending on the speed, we can do that 2,000 square foot commercial a lot faster than we'd be able to do the residential. So
Right. And it all depends on what's your strength. So if you're one of those people that just like to be wide open and full throttle, commercial is where it's at. If you're, I'm not saying don't be meticulous, but just having that freedom to roam. But if you are one of the individuals that likes to go in and have an easier day or week, so to speak, right, and take your time, move things around, for the customer, the client, or your trade partner, then residential is a little bit more slower pace for individuals like that. To each their own. I like where we're at in our percentages right now, so it's a good mix.
Constantly working on those, work in progress, all the time. But yeah, if you guys got any questions, you guys should know where to reach us by now. If not, our first names, Daniel or Jose, at preferredflooringmi.com, or like I said before, and we shortened it, so at pfmi.team will probably be easier. But a lot of people, even after that, they're like, well, is there like a .com after that? It's like, no, it's just .team. That's it. But all right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Have a good one.